Thank you so much for tuning in again. I wanted to talk about vulnerability because the last time I was on here, I talked about vulnerability in a way in which it can be bad. That is a double edged sword. I was vulnerable to the wrong person. I was vulnerable in bad situations. I was putting my faith in the wrong places. So now I want to just kind of talk about when I came home and how hard it was to be vulnerable. And the times that I did it, I thought I blew it, or I was so downtrodden, beat down that I mean, I just couldn't help but tell what was going on with me. So, a lot of people know that I came to Columbia, Missouri. I was in Kansas City when my crime occurred. So from there, I had planned to go back to Kansas City. I felt like so much time had passed by, and I'm this new person that's behind me. I'm just going to, keep my head down and do the right thing, and I won't be adversely affected by going there. So, about 3 months prior to me finally leaving the penitentiary, because it had been probably about the last 6 years that I had felt a light at the end of the tunnel, and I had started investigating, different places that I could go. And I found a nice place in Kansas City where, it was actually run by nuns. And I just felt like, I can get there and this will be my start. So, for these 6 years, it wasn't always easy for me to go to the reentry center in the penitentiary because the staff knew me and knew it wasn't time for me to go, and basically looked at me like I was taking up space there. And I remember having a conversation with Shelley Staten, who was over the reentry, still is, in Chillicothe. And I said, I need this information because I need to write them and let them know who I am and that, I'm interested and I want to know more about their program. And she said, Tosin, you'll be just fine. They're going to know who you are. So let's fast forward. I'm 3 months from going home, got this plan in place to go to Kansas City. And the same woman, Shelley Staten, calls me to the reentry center and says, sit down. I want you to look at this. So it was a pamphlet for Stonebridge House. And it was going to be a brand new program here in Columbia, and no one had been there yet. So I was to, come and be the ambassador for this program. And it all sounded really, really good. However, this is a brand new plan. I was planning on going to Kansas City where, I know where I'm going. I can get around. My family's there. And I just started weeping because it sounded so good. But I was 3 months from going to fulfill this plan that I'd had, years in the making. And I didn't know anyone, a soul in Columbia. So I look up at Shelley Staten. I've got tears going down my face. And I'm like, it sounds so good, but I don't know anyone there. And, my family, they're already planning to come from all ends of the earth to finally see me, to finally be in the free world with, the family member that's been in prison for 14 and a half years. So I'm devastated. I don't know what to do. It sounds good. And she says, go talk to your family, see what they think. That's how she talks. She's very kind. She's very kind, but that's how she talks. So I go back to the housing unit and, I've been there a long time and I'm friendly Bob, same as I am out here. So my prison family they're all waiting in the ice line because we actually had ice wars. That's a whole nother to do, but they're all waiting, the whole wing. And I come in pouring in tears and everybody's like, Syreta, what's wrong? What's wrong? So I tell them about Columbia and how, they want me to come and start this program and, basically knew that I could do it and I was successful, even though I didn't know a soul there. So I'm talking to my prison family and they rally around me and they say, Syreta, this is you. This is you. That is God telling you to go there. And I tell this story, this old biker woman comes up to me who I'd really never held a conversation with. And she says, I think you'll be just fine. It sounds like this is for you. And you can always take the bus to Kansas City. It's only 2 hours away. So, with all the influence that that family held on me, I didn't even call my family out here. I went back to the reentry center and I told Miss Staten, I said, I'm going to do that. That sounds like that's for me. So she said, well, I'm going to call her and tell her about you because I've already kind of been telling her about you and let her know that you're going to go. So then I go back and I call my family and I tell them, hey, what do you think about me going to Columbia? And they're like, do it. My son was like, yeah, you're going to start this. You're going to be the ambassador for Stonebridge House. I was going to pave the way for women to get out and enjoy this new program. So Rebecca Robinson, it was her brainchild. And she came to see me, like instantly went through the paperwork. And, I'm trying to be all like, do you feel like it's a good place for me? And she said, I feel like it is you. So I came to Columbia. I was vulnerable. I put all my eggs in this basket, and I didn't know a soul in this town. So, about a month later, there's a job fair. And I've talked about the job fair before. And a friend of mine who I worked with, Bernie Andrews, said I was born at the job fair. And I didn't know whether or not he knew about my past, but it was true. So I went to this job fair and I just felt like nothing had turned out the way I had planned. I had spent so long away and I'd only been out a month. I didn't know scan the QR code really meant maybe they were interested. A lot of people had said, well, go online and fill out the application. And I had thought for sure they were, I'd heard interviews on the spot. So I felt like there was nothing here for me. And I had a parole officer, and me and him, even though I'd been out a month, he really believed in me. And I was so hurt. I texted him because when I walked into the job fair, it was the Highway Patrol, Missouri State Highway Patrol, Missouri Department of Corrections, and Missouri Columbia Police Department. All jobs I could never have. So that was a little disheartening. And then came QR code, and then came apply online. So I'm feeling as though nothing has happened good for me. That this was just, it was devastating. I told everyone I was going to this job fair. And, I still talk to my friends in prison. They're like, Syreta, you're going to come away with the job. This nice gentleman named Raymond Hall says, they're hiring. They're hiring where I work. Go down to the Ready building. It's underneath a parking garage. So I go, I've got my resume, my paper resume. I've been away so long. And he said, go to the front desk and tell them you're interested. So I go up to the front desk. They say, you need to talk to Jamie Pringer, and she's at lunch. So I don't really have a lot of faith. At this point, I'm exhausted. I've had so much hope built up for weeks in this job fair. And, I'm just going to give this one last shot. So I go to this bench a couple blocks away to kind of compose myself because I'm so sad. I'm so sad. And I text my parole officer and told him, the highway patrol, the police department, DOC was there. And he says, well, it sounds like there wasn't a lot for you, but I believe in you. And, this text comes through. I'm sitting on this bench. So now even my parole officer feels sorry for me. So, I'm just like, oh. And at the same time, this woman comes by, and, I'm 2 blocks away from Ready, and she says, I'm looking for a building this man told me about where they're hiring someone for the front. Do you know where it is? Because we were at the same job fair. So now I'm really like, oh my God, she's going to get the job. She's dressed nice. I'm sure she's got skills, but I'm going to tell her because that's the right thing to do. So I'm like disheartened and I'm like, it's down the street and turn right. So about time that, it's about 30 minutes later and Jamie Pringer is supposed to be back. By this time, I'm a mess. So I give her my resume and she says, well, come on, let me talk to you. And I'm talking to her, but I feel like I'm fumbling all my words, that I sound dumb. And I'm just, at this point, I just look at her and I say, I just got out of prison September 2nd from doing a long time there. And I just need a hand up, not a handout. And she looks at me and says, I just recently had some health issues. And we both were weeping. So I, and I still feel like I blew it. I blew it. So she says, we'll schedule you for an interview in about 2 weeks' time. Like I blew it. Fast forward, I interview with her and Lauren Weber, and I passed the test, I guess. Because later on, I get a text and it says, can you send some references? And we'd like to get you in front of Stacy Button. I didn't know at that time that Stacy was a big deal. And I had prayed that morning. I said, God, give me intelligence to speak with these people. And then I said, give me uncommon intelligence. And he gave it to me, and they gave me the job. Vulnerable. I was vulnerable, and it worked. Now, let's go down the line. I'm going to get a place, and I've got that family in Kansas City. I've got them to come with me. I've got them invested. So I'm looking for a place. My best friend that I met when I got here, because I didn't know a soul, so I'm making new friends. Angelique Hunter is a real estate agent. So since I'm a renter, she found me a place. I go look at it. I'm invested. I've got my parents, they're both retired. I have a full time job. We're a powerhouse. And they turned me down because of my criminal background. So as I'm sitting behind that desk, I can't even hold it together. And here comes Lisa Driscoll Hawksby, who works with me and even had come to support me when I started telling people that I'd been incarcerated. And she said, Huh, Bun, what's wrong? And I said, I can't find a place for me and my parents. She said, Hold on. She went around the corner and came back and said, and I'd met Heather Hargrove before. She'd come to support me too. He said, call this number, call this woman, tell her what's going on, send her an email, and tell her that Lisa Driscoll Hawksby and Heather Hargrove are your friends, and we're trying to help you. And I did. And me and my mother, because my father didn't make it, but I feel like he did, he passed away, live in a beautiful home because I was vulnerable. I didn't keep it to myself. I was beat down in that moment. I was sad. And now I have a home. I was beat down in that moment in prison. I was sad, but now I have a home. So many times I was beat down and I was vulnerable, and it didn't go my way, but this time it did. Thanks for listening.